to walk you through the month of December 2025 and how I'm going to be tackling it as a trader on the US indices, the Nasdaq and the Dow Jones in the New York session. There's quite a lot which is unusual or specific to this month. So if you trade the Nasdaq and the Dow Jones, I highly recommend watching until the end of this video. By no means am I telling anyone that they should trade or how to trade. It's just I'm telling you how I'm going to trade and what is coming up in the month that is specific and will affect the financial market. So you definitely don't want to miss this video because there's a lot going on here. Also, as my Christmas present to you, if you would like one of these for free, then send me an email to info@tradingangel.co.uk and I will send you a free copy so you can keep it at your trading desk. I print one off every month, keep it at my trading desk, and it just helps me to manage the month ahead. As always, I've added a couple new things in. Every time I make one of these, I seem to make it a little bit more elaborate. This time I've actually included the time of day that the last piece of high impact news is coming out. That's not a hard and fast rule because on some days there's going to be several pieces of high impact news and they're going to be dotted around, but I've kind of put the type of news and the time of day just to help me a little bit, because if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I find timing just to be such an important element of trading. As I'm a scalp trader in the New York session, the New York session's quite long. It means that sometimes that one big move happens so quickly. So knowing when the last piece of high impact news is coming out is actually very important. And often I'm not actually looking for a trade before the last piece of high impact news. So for example, when the interest rate decision comes out and it's at 7 p.m. UK time, I'm not going to be looking for a trade before it's released. I'm going to be waiting until 7 p.m. But if the last piece of high impact news was at, say, 1:30 p.m., I will start looking for a trade after the open at 2:30. So the times on here just helps me to think about how I'm going to manage the month ahead. So if you're excited to learn about the month of December, then hit the thumbs up button before we get started. If you're new to this channel, then welcome to Trading Angel. My name's Caroline. I've been a trader for around 10 years. I trade the Nasdaq and the Dow Jones in the New York session, as I have mentioned. And I've added a couple other currencies in here. So I've added the interest rate decision for the pound and the euro. That's just because a couple of the traders that I coach trade these as well. But it's also because I live in the UK. So I like to know when the UK interest rate decision is coming out. I will also be making reference to timing in this. As you can see, there's already some times on here. Just a quick note that these are UK time and obviously will need to be adjusted if you live anywhere else. I'm going to just quickly point out the biggest week, and then we're going to go right to the beginning and work through it in a logical order. But can you see this middle week here from the 15th to the 19th? This is a huge week in many ways. One thing that's really different about this month to other trading months is that usually NFP is on the first Friday of the month, but because of the government shutdown, it has now been chucked in on a random Tuesday. So Tuesday the 16th, NFP is going to be, which is really unusual. So we don't have it on the first Friday of the month. As usual, we have it in the middle of the month. But there's also a few other things happening in this week as well, which make it quite a big week. We've also got CPI for the dollar on Thursday, and we've also got the interest rate decision for the pound and the euro that same day. So this is a high warning day. We also have the last Friday before Christmas. I put a little Santa hat in the corner because the last Friday before Christmas sometimes can have a little bit of a Santa rally, which means the stock market just makes a huge move up. Now, that doesn't happen every year, and it doesn't happen on the same day every year. So I have no idea what day it's going to happen on this year, if it's going to happen at all. This does not mean that that's going to happen on that day. It just means it happened on the last Friday before Christmas last year. And I've just put a little Santa hat there to remind me that it could happen, but not necessarily. It could happen at any day, really. And it could happen the following week on one of these days before Christmas, or it could not happen at all. Last year, I made around 2,000 points on Santa Rally on the last Friday before Christmas. So it is worth noting that it could happen, but it doesn't necessarily happen. So just something to be aware of. So let's start at the very beginning. We start off Monday the 1st. We've got PMI at 3 p.m. That means that even though the stock market opens at 2:30 UK time, I'm probably going to wait until after 3 p.m. to look for a trade setup. On Tuesday, we have a central bank speech at 1 a.m., which sounds like a really random time to have a speech, but obviously in America, Eastern time is 5 hours behind UK time, so that will be at around 8 in the evening for them. But I've put a little warning in the corner to be careful of this day, because if this is happening overnight and something big comes from it, there may be a large move in London, which can affect New York's open. If there's a big move in London, there's often a very difficult open for New York. So just something to be aware of on this day. It doesn't mean there isn't going to be a big tradable move, but it often means the move could happen a little bit later. So you don't want to be reactive on the open. Salesforce release their earnings on Wednesday after the market closes. So just something to be aware of. Sometimes, again, this can mean that there is a nice move overnight and in London coming into Thursday. So this could affect Thursday. But it really depends how dramatic the figures are. If they're not very dramatic, we might see a little bit of a move, and that's that. But if it's something huge, like they're up 500% or something, then we may see a move over London. Again, that could affect Thursday's open. So just something to be aware of. PMI at 3 p.m, meaning I probably won't look for a trade until after 3 p.m. unless something dramatic happens on the open. Thursdays are usually quite news heavy. We've got the jobless reports coming out at 1:30. So I think this should be fairly straightforward, depending on obviously what we had from the earnings the day before. Friday, we've got high impact news at 3 p.m. Again, that means I'll probably wait until after 3 p.m. to take a position. So Monday the 8th, I'm not going to be trading, and I'm not going to be trading on the 9th either. That's what these little crosses in the corner stand for. That's because the interest rate decision is on the 10th, and often the days before can be really difficult, as traders are reluctant to take any big positions just before a piece of high impact news. So these are usually great days just to take off as holiday. You'll get the odd one which has a really nice move for some other reason, but for the majority of the time when they're just really difficult, it's actually better for me, I find, to sit out. So this is slightly strange compared to normal, because usually we have NFP on the first Friday, and usually the Monday after NFP is one of my best days of the month. So whereas I'd usually be trading this day quite aggressively, I'm actually taking it completely off. So a little bit of advice is, when you see these crosses in the corner, I would highly recommend you just take the entire day off as well. I don't even want to look at my chart on these days, because I end up just automatically reacting. So it's like Pavlov's dog. If I'm sitting at the computer and I see the market moving, I will just start doing what I do. So I don't even want to be at my computer and get triggered to start doing anything. I want to be completely out the house. So I usually just make plans which mean that I can't look at my phone or can't look at the charts on these days. And therefore it doesn't really matter that this piece of news is coming out here. Again, this would usually be a fairly nice piece of news to wait for, but in this circumstance, I'm probably just going to leave it as it is one day before the interest rate decision. It could be good, but also I would rather miss a good day than trade on a bad day. Interest rate decision being released at 7 p.m. UK time, which means that I won't be trading from the open until 7, but I will be here from 7. I put a warning sign here because sometimes the news itself isn't actually good to trade. So I don't necessarily want to trade on this day, but I want to see what the result is. I want to be there as it comes in. And I also want to draw out my key levels, because the high impact news makes really good key levels. So every time I draw my key levels based on the high impact news, I'm kind of doing future me a favor, because it means that they're on there, and it could mean that at any point over the next month or the following month, those become good key levels to take trades from. So I want to be here, I want to see what the result is, and I want to draw my key levels, but I'm probably not going to take a position in the evening. There's only 2 hours until the market closes, and at 7:30 there's also going to be a speech, and often those are famously quite difficult anyway. So I'll be around, but not necessarily trading. Depending on what's come out of this, there will potentially be something to do on the Thursday. The market will sometimes move overnight once there's been some high impact news, in which case, again, it will make the open more difficult on the Thursday. However, if it doesn't move nicely overnight, we might get a nice open here. So I'll kind of come to this day and see what's happened in the previous session and overnight, and then base how I'm going to trade off that. Friday, it should be fairly straightforward. We don't seem to have anything to complicate it, and it's 2 days after the interest rate decision. So the market might be feeling friendlier on this day. However, on Monday, I'm taking that off because that is the day before NFP. And NFP, again, very similar to the interest rate decision, high impact news. The only thing is it comes out at 1:30. So I will be there to see what's come out. I will be drawing up my key levels, but I won't necessarily trade depending on what comes out of it. I'll wait and see how that plays out. The next day, the 17th, I put a cross next to it, and that's because it is the day before CPI. So usually I won't trade 2 days before CPI, NFP, or an interest rate decision. So the 16th is the second day before CPI. So this is a very strange week, which is why I pointed it out right at the very beginning, because there is the possibility for things to be really dramatic, either in a good way, but also possibly in a bad way. So you just want to be aware of that. On the 18th, this is a big day. We've got Nike releasing their earnings after the market closes. We've got CPI, which is going to be at 1:30. I haven't put the time on here, but it is 1:30. Interest rate decision for the pound and the euro as well. So if you trade either of those currencies, then this is a huge day. We've got a warning sign here. So don't be too trigger happy if things aren't going your way. It's likely to be a difficult day with a lot of volatility. On the 19th, I'm going to be interested in what the market does. We have had all of the high impact news. We've had CPI, NFP that week. We had interest rate decision the week before. 19th could be an interesting day to watch. So I will be here. I will be focused and on high alert. But obviously, I know that there are still other trading days before Christmas. So we're not necessarily going to have anything there. It's just a nice one to watch out for. Monday the 22nd should be fairly straightforward. And Tuesday the 23rd, again, we've got high impact news coming out at 3 p.m. So I won't make a trading decision until after 3. On Wednesday the 24th, it is Christmas Eve. So markets are closing at 6 p.m. UK time. So just be aware, if you do decide to trade on this day, it isn't going to be open until the usual time. Obviously on the 25th we have Christmas Day, and on the 26th it's Boxing Day. So these are non-trading days. And on Monday the 29th I've put a warning sign, and that's just because it's the period between Christmas and New Year's. Now, depending on what markets you trade, it's going to be very different. So when I first started trading, I was trading Forex. Forex was awful between Christmas and New Year's. But the US indices aren't actually that bad. So US 30 and Nasdaq can actually have some nice moves on these ones, but just be careful, because I know that not everyone who watches this will be trading the same markets as me. So if you're trading pound dollar or euro dollar, then just be aware Forex doesn't like the week between Christmas and New Year's. There's a central bank speech on the 30th. We've got New Year's Eve on the 31st, obviously, so I'm not going to be trading on that day, and I'm not going to be trading on New Year's Day either. But also, we've got NFP for January on the 2nd. So be mindful that this is coming up, and therefore don't try too hard for these 4 days. And also, sometimes that can mean that the week after is a little bit easier. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to give it a little thumbs up. And if you want one of these to print out and keep at your trading desk, then send me an email to info@tradingangel.co.uk.